Hello everybody, welcome to ScottyDGaming. I'm Scotty D and today is my review of Code Vein. Prepare the chest bazookas! Code Vein is an anime action RPG that can be played in proper co-op with a friend, but there's no PvP. It uses the Dark Souls formula, all of the same elements are here. Unfortunately, the formula used feels like a cheap Chinese knockoff rather than the real deal. I hated the first 4 hours of the game, the combat was samey, the levels were boring, and the dialogue was tedious. But I'm glad I continued because the game's saving grace is the class system customization, keeping you playing and perfecting your build. Without this, the game would have been a complete write-off. It took me 25 hours to finish the game, and I spent an additional 6 hours playing with character builds. Now before we start, I have to get one subject right out of the way. Giant anime titties. They're everywhere in Code Vein. I'm impressed and I love spotting a new set. I like to think of myself as a connoisseur of perversion, and I know a good dose when I say it. Whether it's a skimpily clad woman with a top that struggles to contain the sheer mass of her breasticle proportions, to the awesome booty and camel toe camera angles, this game delivers on all fronts, quite literally. The story is set in a post-apocalyptic world where the people have been infected and turned into revenants, which are very similar to vampires. They have to consume blood or they go crazy and turn into demons called the Lost. Humans to feed on are getting very rare, and increasingly more revenants are turning into demons due to the lack of available blood. When a person turns into a revenant, they lose their memories, but these memories are trapped within crystal vestiges and cannot be retrieved by the person as it overpowers them and turns them into a demon immediately. Your character is different, they can restore these memories without going mad, and this is where it all starts. Immediately on entering the game, you're thrown into one of the most customizable character creations I can even think of. Normally, when creating a character, I don't spend too much time. I just pick a man, change the hair and facial hair, then start the game. It was different this time. All of the men look like women, and you can't give them facial hair to even make them look a bit manly. So I made a female for the first time. It's anime, so when in Rome, you've got to. I spent 15 minutes there before I had to stop myself and get on with the game. You could spend hours here, customizing and saving many different looks, plus you can change your look at any time during the game from your home base. It really is excellent. To be fair though, the only thing that matters in the character creation is the physique setting, which you'll want to max out. Yeah boy! But the character class customization is the staple of the game. You'll find so many new classes as you play, with many skills and builds to try out. I'll explain the basics on how it works because the tutorial isn't the greatest and floods you with too many new terms to grasp it all in one go. Each class is called a blood code, and within each class you have skills called gifts. You can unlock these skills using the level and currency called haze, which you get from killing enemies. Many skills can be used outside of their original class by mastering them, and you master a skill by just having it equipped while killing enemies. You don't even need to use that skill as long as it's equipped. A tip here is that you don't master a skill by killing a set number of enemies. It's actually based on how much haze you earn while it's equipped. Harder enemies give more haze. Alternatively, you can quickly master a skill by using items called awake. I found plenty of these items, so I very rarely had to grind a skill out, but I can imagine if you wanted to try everything the game has to offer, then you would be grinding for hours. Each class has its own unique stats, different health, mana, strength and magic, so pick the one that suits your playstyle and then master skills from other classes and use them in your own. The possibilities are huge. Even better is that you can switch class at any time, just go into the menu and change it. You aren't tied down to any decisions, it's brilliant. A little bit of advice for when you're comparing classes, because it's not made clear and I had to discover this for myself, is that the stats you see in the class selection screen also include any passive abilities you have equipped on that class. So you must equip the same passive skills to any new class to see an accurate comparison between the two. And the final stage of customization and playstyles are the weapons and armour that you choose. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit disappointed by the offerings. There aren't enough sets of armour. This becomes even more apparent due to the fact that you can only equip one armour piece. You don't have boots, gloves or helmets, just the chest piece. I wore the same piece of armour for the entire game because it was best suited to my greatsword style. I would have liked some similar but different looking pieces, even if the stats weren't necessarily an upgrade. I just wanted more choice. The weapon choices are a bit better than the armour choices because there's different classes of weapons to play with. Greatswords, hammers, axes, bayonet rifles, etc. all with their own playstyles, and within each weapon class there are slight differences in movesets between weapons, so it's good to test them out and not just look for the raw damage. This brings me onto the combat, where we get to use all of our awesome customizations. It's gotta be good, right? It's not. It falls flat onto its massive anime titties. It doesn't feel satisfying, and I can tell you why. It's a combination of a few things. The enemies are too fast, and they're too many at one time. It's easy to get gangbanged and stunlocked, removing any in-combat strategy that might be possible other than hit and run. Your character is locked in place for too long after a backstab. The invincibility frames actually end before you fully regain control of your character's ability to dodge, meaning you can take damage before getting the chance to prevent it. This stopped me from even trying to backstab in any situation other than a 1v1. It's too easy for your character to get staggered. I wore heavy armour with a passive ability that boosts stagger resistance and also used an active ability that boosts stagger resistance even further. I still got staggered in the first hit. I kept having PTSD flashbacks of the poise system in Dark Souls 3, where you could use a teaspoon to stagger someone wearing an actual mountain as armour. It's not fun, especially for people wanting to use big heavy slow weapons. The heavy hitting melee skills that you'll learn look awesome and do big damage, but you won't use them because they're not reliable. They will be interrupted by enemy attacks as they don't get any hyper armour, and the tracking of the skills are terrible, meaning they miss most of the time. By the time the skill has wound up and locked you into a direction of attack, the enemy's already moved out of the way or staggered you. It's stupid. I normally play without being locked on to an enemy when fighting multiple opponents so that I can aim my attacks manually. It's very hard to do here because there's an auto aim that makes you attack towards the closest enemy even when not locked on. This is unforgivable and immensely frustrating, especially when you want to aim a wide swooping attack between two enemies so you hit them both, but the game auto aims it towards one, missing the other. And in the worst case scenario in a group of enemies, if you initiate an attack towards the person in front of you, but there's someone to the side of you stood just that little bit closer, your character will turn a little bit, get stuck into the attack animation and end up swiping and hitting thin air, missing both enemies. It's truly useless. In these games you need to have full 360-degree control of where you attack without any interference. The enemy variety is a top tier cut and paste job. There's more variety in a bag of Cadbury's chocolate buttons. The enemies in the first three areas are what you'll be fighting the entire game, just with increasingly more health. You've got regular dudes, big fat ladies, skinny ladies and tentacle monsters, plus a few unique ones at the end of the game, and that's pretty much it. The bosses all look good however, and most have great intro cutscenes leading up to them, but the fights are little more than them being super fast, zooming around the battlefield like they've done a big bag of whiz, and unleashing 360-degree area of effect spells when you get close. You can predict what to do before even knowing what you're fighting. All of the flaws above can be overlooked or avoided by adjusting the way you approach the gameplay, which I did. But what can't be avoided is the atrocious level design. All but two of the levels are a maze of narrow corridors that open up into slightly more open intersections, followed by more narrow interlinking corridors. And what's worse is that early on you get to the cathedral area, which has the same white looking corridors attached to the same white circular buildings with multiple levels. It's a maze with no identifying features and a complete ball ache to navigate. It's also the longest level in the game and repeated near the end, but painted black instead. It feels lazy and uninspired. I played a ghetto game called Kingdom Under Fire Circle of Doom back on the Xbox 360 in 2007. And it had the same type of level design as this. It wasn't good then, and it's certainly not good now. I liked the story, just not the way it was conveyed. I thought it was interesting, and the characters were mostly likeable if you can get past their super emotional and cheesy dialogue. I found it excruciatingly painful to listen to the girl Io, who talks so slowly like she just came down from a bad trip, but she's got massive boobs, so I let her off. The story's told in two different ways. One which is acceptable and the other one which is drawn out nonsense. All of the story that relates to the main task at hand is told through cutscenes, which are okay. They're nice to look at, but have far too many strange pauses in between sentences and drawn out scenes. At times, I wondered if my game froze waiting on someone to say something, but it's done purely for dramatic effect. On the flip side, any story that relates to individual characters are told through monotonous, slow walking dream sequences called memories. What on earth were they thinking? What makes it worse is that you find upgrades called vestiges that give you new skills. You trade these with an NPC and have to go through a walk and dream sequence before the skill is unlocked. Every time. There are approximately 45 memories, and each memory is around 2 minutes long if you walk through it as fast as you can. Add on a loading screen either side of the memory and you've got nearly 2 hours worth of boring nothingness that could have been summed up in seconds. And the funny thing is, after every memory, an NPC sums up what you saw anyway. Luckily, you can skip these memory sequences and only have to endure 2 back-to-back load screens, which lessens the blow. There should be an option when handing in a skill vestige to unlock instantly without having to load the walk-in sequence. The difficulty of the game depends on if you bring a companion along with you or not. There are 7 NPC companions, all with different fighting styles, and they do a really good job in combat. They don't need to be babysat and really lower the difficulty of each encounter by drawing aggro, doing damage and being able to resurrect you up to 2 times if you die. I really like them. The only negative is that they comment on every action that you do. I was told for 25 hours straight that it was dangerous to fight near a ledge and that I have an eagle eye every time I picked up an item. It was pretty funny. If you do decide to adventure without a companion, this is probably one of the most difficult games you'll play because of the stun lock, enemy speed and quantity as discussed. Plus, if you die, there's no revives. Code Vein is not designed to be played solo, and this is where the balance and difficulty becomes apparent. It's a shame they didn't scale the game difficulty depending on if you have a partner or not, because sometimes having a partner takes away from the fun when you want to try and play skillfully with a parry or backstab, but your partner is just there destroying everything, yet it's too ruthless to play alone. The musical score in Code Vein is excellent. It's got a mixture of intense, church organ, gothic sounding tunes and also some more tranquil songs to fit the more emotional parts of the story. Now there's one of those emotional songs that it made me laugh every time it come on. It starts with laughter in the distance. When you hear it, you'll know which one it is, but it sounds like a Disney movie and I got a chuckle every time it played. Code Vein is a roller coaster of good and bad bits. Despite its problems, I did manage to have fun with it simply due to the awesome class system and my love of improving and perfecting different builds. It's just unfortunate that the levels, combat system and enemies aren't fun enough to make them worthwhile. I can only recommend this game to people that love customization, showing off their character builds and co-op, and who love big anime titties.